All right, so first of all, I do appreciate you taking the time out to speak to me. That's very important. That's for one. I just want to get that out the way. And to start off, can you just introduce yourself? Tell us a bit about yourself and your story and how you got to this position of running for the mayor of Jersey City.
Sure. I can hop right into it. So my name is Mussab Ali. I'm running to be the next mayor of Jersey City. So I moved to Jersey City when I was 3 years old, and I moved here from Pakistan. My dad, his first job was actually at Newark Airport, right? So September 11th, he has a job. September 12th, he lost his job because he had the most common name in the world, Muhammad, right? So basically, they're like, look, you're not gonna have a job. So like that was the first time I think politics really touched me. Like immediately as soon as we moved to this country, I was like a year in, and then you sort of fast forward. I was never like political actually as a kid, right? Like I wasn't one of those kids in like student government, student council, none of that stuff. But in 2016, honestly, I ran out of like this sort of feeling of hometown pride, right? So I don't know if you remember this, and you just got to remind me your age, like.
I'm 23. I'm young.
You're 23.
Uh,
So yeah, I don't know if you remember this because this happened when you were in high school, or maybe you were at the end of middle school. But when Trump was running, Trump has a quote about Jersey City, and he says, "I remember watching in Jersey City, New Jersey, where thousands of people were cheering on the rooftops during 9/11." Right?
okay, I
And
remember
that was
this.
2016. Yeah. So I'm like, man, this guy's talking about my town. Like I should do something. And by virtue of like not knowing any politicians, like literally probably the only politicians I knew is I knew the president of the United States was Barack Obama, and I knew that the mayor was Steve Fulop. That's it. I didn't know anybody else. So because I didn't know anyone, I kind of was like, yo, look, like what should I do? And my school started talking about this idea of like local government, and I was like, yo, why not like run for office? And then ran for board of education. Um, Lost that election really bad, and then fast forward to 2017, and I was elected to office when I was 20 years old. And that journey was really interesting because the guy I was running against, right, like he was a two-tour veteran, he was a VP at a bank, he was in his mid 40s. And so on paper, like you lose that matchup, right? Like
Yeah.
imagine that match, 20-year-old kid in college whose background is I've run a campaign and lost, versus a guy who's a two-tour veteran, VP at a bank, all this stuff. And also he was supported by the mayor, right? And remember, the mayor's on the ballot that year. So we win that election 9,388 to 9,320, 68 votes.
Wow.
So I'm kind of like, wow, like, we made some history, we became the youngest person ever elected, was the first Muslim ever elected in Jersey City history, became the youngest Muslim elected official in the country. And I immediately start to realize, like, man, there are so many things that are wrong with our educational system. Um, One of them, and I imagine this probably, I don't know if you got to experience this, was the water fountains had been shut down since I was in like third grade. So they probably shut down like when you were before you even got to school. And so basically, when I got in office is when we started to fix that problem, right? We worked with advocates at Jersey City together, and I was on the board. And now every single kid has clean drinking water. But imagine that, like, a couple years ago, that wasn't even a thought. Like, hey, why don't we give these kids clean water in school in like 2018, right? So I start to realize, like, all right, there's all these things that are sort of missing. So I start to get really involved in the process. By 2021, I was in my first year at Harvard Law School. So sort of switched from medicine to law, and I became the president of the Board of Education. So I'm 23. They write this headline. It's like Ali makes history again, right? First time I was 20, now I'm 23. And I really took over because it was the middle of the pandemic, and they needed somebody who was going to like reopen the schools. And so I kind of was like, look, like I think I'll figure this out. And so they just sort of put me in charge. So that was sort of my pathway to leadership. But then 2 weeks into that term, I get diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. So this is like, it's sort of this like up and down process in this journey. But I basically said to myself, you know what, look, I had a lot of great opportunities at 23. If God has more time, he'll give me more time. But if he's happy with what I've done, so be it. And lucky enough to be here now, 4 years cancer free. God is good. And so, I went through that whole process, went through chemotherapy, left the Board of Education, went to law school, came back, did some voting rights work. And then I sort of looked around Jersey City and I was like, man, I basically got to achieve the American dream, right? Like I went to public schools here. I went off to Harvard for law school. And now I'm sort of like looking at Jersey City and people can't even afford to be here, right? And I mean, this is like someone from Jersey City, right? McNair is always known as that, like, oh, like that's a special school, like the smart kids go there, whatever, whatever. But consider this: I was the first McNair alum ever elected to office in Jersey City history. Historically, it had always been you made it because you left Jersey City, and now making it was could you afford to stay here?
Exactly.
And I think that that proposition really made me think like, man, I need to do something to make this city more affordable. I need to fight for people like me, who like, have grown up here, who can't afford to be here anymore. But also like, how do I connect these new people who are coming in with all this money and all this wealth to like give back to Jersey City? Because I feel like it's been this tale of two cities, right? I mean, I think you see this
Yeah.
all the time. It's like
So
there's the downtown section and the rest of the city. Yeah.
before we even get into all of that, I definitely want to applaud you for that. I'm a realistic guy. It's hard, especially, with your father being here during that time and coming up, being Muslim. Let's be honest here. And then being diagnosed with cancer right at that, it's your time to shine. 20 years old versus this guy with stacked paperwork. You usually don't beat something like that. Let's be honest. And that's just the difference of paperwork before they even get to hear you speak. The first thing that they always look at is what you have on paper. So I applaud you for that. I think it's always hard for anybody to be in a position like you. What color you are, your race, your religion, what you believe in, it's hard to get into these positions. It really is. So I applaud you on that. And I do have a question. When you were 20 years old, what do you think it was to make you beat this guy with such stacked paperwork, especially a veteran? They're very well connected.
Yeah. I mean,
So what was that factor? What
yeah, so,
was the people hearing from you that made them think
yeah.
this is the guy for the position?
So I will say one funny thing about that story, right? So on election night, they called the victory for me, right? They were like, look, he won the election. I was up by like 300 votes or something, right? The mail-in ballots come in, and because veterans are like really big on mail-in ballots, my lead went from 300 votes to 20 votes, right? And then they were like, yo, there's 3 machines we haven't opened. So you can imagine I'm sitting there like, oh, I'm cooked.
Yeah.
Like I was like, wow. Like on election night, they had me declare victory, and now the lead is shrunk, and now there's 3 more machines, and we know this way this story ends. It's like you thought you had it, and then it's just like, defeat from the jaws of victory. But I think what it was is dude, I had a story that I think was compelling to people, right? Where I said, look, when you talk about education, we will talk to parents, we'll talk to teachers, we'll talk to taxpayers, but no one is talking to the students. And I always said students are the forgotten stakeholders of education. And that was always my, sort of narrative. And I remember people, like, even now I could recite those talking points to you, right? Because I remember how deeply I had memorized the way we talked about that message. It was a very just refined message, right? It's like, look, like, do you not think that young people deserve a seat at the table, especially when we're talking about education, right? Like, and especially when I got in office, right? The first bill I ever passed was to get a student to serve on the Board of Education. That bill then became a statewide model. Governor Murphy took that, and now across the state of New Jersey, if you have a school board, you're supposed to get a high school representative to sit on the Board of Education. And the other thing I did is I did a participatory budgeting project. So I gave every high school $10,000, and I asked them, I said, where would you want to spend this money? I asked the high school kids, right? And, adults are always kind of funny about this stuff, right? They were like, oh, like, you're going to give these kids this money, and like these kids are going to spend like PS5s, or they're going to like a trip to Disney World or something, right?
Yeah.
Do you know what every single high school asked for?
What did they ask for?
Fix my bathrooms. Right?
I
But think
wasn't
about
expecting
that.
that.
But think about it, right? Like if you go to Jersey City schools, like, bro, the bathroom stalls were broken, the soap was broken, right? Like all this stuff doesn't work. And the reality was like, we are here at this 30,000 foot level, right? That's where the board sort of sits. You got to think about this, like the board's only employee is the superintendent. So you're sort of sitting all the way at the top of this like hierarchy. And so you're not even understanding on a day-to-day basis what's going on. And my thing is like, dude, teachers and parents, like, yeah, they have an understanding of like some of this, but students are the guys who are walking in, day out and experiencing school.
Yeah.
And I said, why not empower them to be a part of the decision-making process? And I think that's a lot of how I feel about the city as well, right? Is I feel like City Hall often in this administration has sort of like had this paternalistic attitude towards the public, which is like, we will just do something because we think it's good for you. versus like actually asking the residents, like, what do you think? Like, how do you feel about, what's happening in your neighborhoods? How can we improve? And there's this one quote I really like, and it's that those closest to the pain should be closest to the power, right? Because I feel like if you are in a community and for 15 years you walk next to a problem every single day, you probably have a better understanding of how to fix that problem than I do. Because you have probably thought about this problem at least, multiple times throughout your commute, throughout your days. You're like, oh man, like someone should really put like a light post here, or someone should really put a stop sign here, or someone should really do this. And you probably thought about that. So why don't we empower the public to be a part of that process instead of being sort of like, a benevolent dictator that says, look, I'm just going to do this because I think this is what's best.
So, first of all, let me give you a little bio on myself. I've always been into politics. When I was younger, I always found it interesting. I like Democrats, Republicans. I really don't care what it is. I just believe in the right thing. That's something I've always been interested in. I did go to school. I did not finish, but I went for political science because I just love politics in JCU, but I did not finish. I just had to let you know that. I do hope that your attitude and your actions, right, is something that doesn't change. Because of course, around this time, every politician that's running for everything is very involved in the community. You proved yourself in the past by getting the youth involved with what you just told me, which I was ignorant about because I did not know. But I hope you stay this way. Hopefully, if you do win the position, things like this is something that you have to keep doing with the community. Because things change, opinions change, more things come to the neighborhood, more people have something to say. So I hope you stay this way. Okay? And since you spoke about that, about people not really speaking to the community, one of the biggest topics I want to talk about right now, and I want to ask your opinion on it, is the Stephen Fulop administration wanting to turn Ocean Avenue and MLK into a one-way drive. So I want to speak to you about this because of what you just said. You feel like they don't listen to the community, and they don't. I'm going to tell you my opinion on the situation, and then I want to hear yours first because I don't want mine. I don't want mine to influence anything you say. So I want to hear your opinion on it first. And keep in mind, where do you live? What area in the Journal section? Journal Square, right? Square,
yeah.
Keep in mind that you don't live here. I want you to keep that in mind and not be biased. Because a lot of people make decisions on places that they do not live, and it does not affect them. And if you are mayor of Jersey City, you have to care about everybody. It's no longer about you or your section. So I just want to know your opinion on that. Have you ever even been to the section of Greenville, Jersey City? MLK and Ocean Avenue?
I mean, I literally went to school right next to Snyder High School.
Okay.
So middle school, I literally used to commute all the way there. And there were some days, I mean, look, probably a little bold of me, but as a middle school, I'd walk back from, like, I guess where was this? Like MLK and Claremont, and walk all the way back home sometimes, right? So it was quite a long walk.
Yeah, that's all.
And I used to walk it on MLK and now on Ocean, and I think you probably know why I did that. But it was still pretty rough. I mean, especially back then. But look, I got to tell you, look, I've been in these neighborhoods, I've been in these communities. I think one of the toughest things here, again, right, this goes back to like getting feedback from the community, right? Like, I think there's a way to approach this, right? If you are saying, look, the benefits of having, a dedicated bus line is really important. Like, okay, how do we talk to the community about the benefits of that existing? I think the problem right now is these two streets are not parallel, right? If they were exactly parallel, like, yeah, you can sort of like run a circuit. But when you have certain areas that there are multiple blocks away, if someone is taking the bus from MLK, now they have to walk 4 or 5 blocks to get to Ocean to take the bus going the other way. It's just not going to work, right? Like, that process doesn't work. And so I think what's really important is, you have to think about how do we make sure we're improving traffic conditions across the city? Because I'll tell you, even in Journal Square, I mean, it is a mess. Like, if you ever drive in Journal Square in the mornings or in the evenings, you cannot move. It is like bumper to bumper traffic, right? And so I think one of the biggest things the city has sort of missed is thinking about, as we've been adding all these people, what are the infrastructure upgrades that we need to do, right? How do we make sure that the city is actually like movable? And the other thing with Greenville, right, is like in a lot of places, there isn't a lot of public transportation, right? So you think about like, yeah, there's the Danforth section, like on Danforth, you can go and get that light rail. or you can go on Richard Street.
Hmm.
But like, if you're not on that part of the city, if you're on the other side, like, how do you get around town? Right? Like, you need a car. Like, essentially, this is the only way that people are getting around, or they're taking these buses. And I think also even some of the buses, they've canceled a bunch of bus routes. They've made it more difficult. So actually, one of our proposals is fast and free buses, and actually proposing a bus route from Greenville to downtown, right? That allows people to go directly
I've
there
seen
instead of
that.
having to go where, right? So to me, like, I think broadly the way I think about this is I think the way this was messaged, right? I think the messenger completely like missed the ball here, right? I think that Fulop has sort of shown a level of neglect for that part of the city, and to then be forcing them to do something, right? To sort of say like this is what's going to happen, I think it's sort of the wrong approach. The way you build support, right? Because I want to talk about not just this proposal, but like how do you build support for proposals in the future? I think the way you build support is you get people in the community to sort of buy into an idea. You say, look, this is what I propose. What are the problems that you guys foresee with this? How do we build a coalition of people who come together and say, look, this is how we want to move forward in our city. This is how we feel about our section of the city. But I think imposing something, right? This idea of like imposing something on a part of the city and saying to them, hey, listen, this is good for you, that never works. Because what that leads to is people being, antagonized and saying, look, like, this person doesn't care about my views, doesn't care about my values, and doesn't see me, right? They don't see me as a person. They just see me as someone that's like in the way of like what their master plan is.
So my whole opinion on this, to be straight honest with you, is stupid. That's really pretty much all I have to say about it. Like you said, when you're building so much infrastructure and they have no plan, if more people are coming into the city, why would you make something a one way? You're making 2 blocks one ways. If you want to come in the Greenville section every morning around 8 a.m. when it's time for all the kids to go to school, the traffic is impossible, right? You're not getting where you want to go. You're gonna be late. And what people fail to understand is it's an input and output. When you leave, you got to come back. Those people have to come back home. So guess what? It's happening to you twice. You're not getting where you need to go, and you can't get back. And the bigger problem with that is the streets in this section are horrible. I want you to you have to come over here and take a look for yourself and walk the streets. Walk the streets, and you're going to realize how stupid this plan is. For the past 3 years, in this entire Greenville section, they're closing off every block, saying they're fixing it, closing it off. We had multiple council meetings, and they said it's going to be done by this time. Just lying. It gets to just be honest with us. Tell us you don't have control over the situation. It's going to take longer than you expected. Stop putting a false deadline. So you want to make one ways, and it's already even more messed up because people can't turn down certain blocks. The streets are closed off. Why would you do that? It's like, who comes up with a plan like that? And what I want to know is how much money, because I searched up online and I seen some documents that showing how much money Jersey City is spending on stupid things, and I couldn't believe it. Millions. A lot of money on stupid stuff. So you already know this kind of project is definitely a multi-million project. So I want to know how much money exactly that they were spending on this and where it could really go to. Because if they have the money to spend something on stupid as this, and they can't even fix the streets that's messed up now, destroying people's cars, people and bikes are getting on accidents that they want to save so much because the city only cares about bicycle riders. You want to turn stuff into a one-way, and you don't even have control over stuff that's open now. Is what I'm not understanding. So if it's a multi-million dollars, I want them to take that money and spend it on something that it really needs to go towards. You have to come see these streets.
Yeah, I mean, look, again, I've been on the streets. Like I said, I actually just last week we were at Danforth Station just talking to people. Because I go to transit locations every morning, and then we try to walk in the evenings, like a little bit after. But look, I'll say this: the number one thing is I think fixing infrastructure is huge, right? And like our streets are horrible across the city. I mean, like we have potholes. I've had some potholes. I mean, in my office, I see some potholes that have been here for 2 years, 3 years now, right? And it's crazy because you're like, especially this part of Journal Square, you got this like massive luxury tower, right? And then right next to it, the street is just chopped. And I think it just doesn't make sense to me, right? That like, okay, like where is this money going? Like, why aren't we having even this developer to say, look, like part of your impact fee has to be helping make sure we pave these roads. And I think that this goes to a broader thing, which is that as you think about city government, um, there's this idea that there's a lot of money that's spent that should not be spent that's given out to people's friends and family, right? And people hear about this all the time. It's this concept of like a corruption tax, right? That you are paying more money because you're actually paying corruption fees for someone's like friends and family. So an article just came out, I think literally yesterday, that talked about this, and it sort of brings into question the contributions for all the mayoral candidates. And I encourage you to sort of check it out. Every single campaign is sort of implicated except for ours, right? So, and by pay to play, they mean something very specific, which is that these candidates voted to give someone a contract, right? In one case, they were highlighting, they voted to give someone $440,000 contract, and then that insurance broker gave their campaign $50,000. I mean, just think about that, right?
I've seen this.
Let's say, right? So
this.
now, if this person is not giving that $50,000, guess who's saving that $50,000? It's the taxpayer that's saving it, right? Mm-hmm. So now, because now instead of charging $440,000, they're going to charge $300 and whatever thousand, right? $390,000, and the taxpayer is saving that $50K. But instead, because they know, oh, I have to get this politician $50K to make sure I keep this contract in the future, that is a corruption tax that we are paying as taxpayers. And that is happening in contracts across the board. That's also happening with developers, right? I mean, look, our mayor, I think we all know this. His super PAC, hundreds of thousands of dollars, like millions of dollars from developers, right? Who he's given tax breaks to build luxury housing with no affordable housing requirements. So to me, it's like, okay, you need someone to represent the city who is from Jersey City, who understands the city, but can also talk the language of these other people who are coming into town who want to make these investments. And I think that's the sort of campaign where we sit at a very unique position, right? Like, out of the major mayoral candidates, I'm the only one running who's went to Jersey public schools. And then I also have the flashy credentials, right? Like, I have a Harvard law degree, so I can come back and talk to these guys and sit at the table and say, look, like, you can't talk to me in circles and pretend like I don't know what's going on. Like, trust me, I've seen the whole picture. Like, I know exactly what's going on. And I also think it's important for us to have someone who's younger represented, right? I mean, like, you look at who Jersey City is. Jersey City's median age is 34 years old. And so for someone who's 65, 66 to be saying like, oh, like, this is, I represent Jersey City. Actually, you represent a really small part of who this city is. And frankly, I think we need younger energy and more people with that sort of passion to bring people together. I mean, I think we saw the same thing in New York City, right? With Zohran Mamdani's win. I think the reason Mamdani won is because he said, look, I'm going to connect with the people. I'm going to get young people out to vote. And I'm going to put really big ideas out there. So for us, right, like, we want to position ourselves as a campaign of big ideas and a campaign with the energy to execute on those ideas.
Okay, so I spoke to you, okay? I sent you a DM on a different Instagram account a couple of months ago. And I was coming up with some plans for Jersey City. And I asked you, I don't know if you remember, about certain programs for Jersey City schools. It was many months ago I told you about it. And if there's any way that the city could get money into building certain programs for people in this area, financial literacy was the biggest thing that I was pushing for. And I was also asking you about removing school zoning, which is a form of segregation, keeping away the predominantly African-American area from downtown, which they do. And I don't remember exactly what you said, but you told me the certain things that you can and can't do as mayor, right? And I'm going to be honest with you, that's not the answer that I was looking for. This is the reason. I know what you can and can't do as mayor, right? And a lot of people are not going to look for that. People want to know, can you help us or not? And this is all I have to say. The best way to get a job today is very hard to get a job. Do you know the best way to get a job? By knowing somebody, right? If you have a friend and you want to get a job, can your friend get you that job? Absolutely not. The only person who could determine if you really get that job or not is his boss. But what can your friend do? He has the power to advocate and influence. He can tell his boss, hey, I think this guy is really perfect for the job. He brings this and this to the table. I think he's great for the company and he'll improve our sales. This is why you should have him. And the only person who can choose whether or not you get that job at the end of the day, no matter how much he advocates, is his boss. But guess what? Your friend did so much by advocating you and influenced his boss to making that decision, you got the job. So what are your thoughts on that? Because I know what you can and can't do, but I wanted to know what you're willing to advocate for. Because you have to understand, you'll have those relationships. You'll be in those rooms with these people. Even if you don't have control, you speak to them. You're like, hey, and they'll listen. Are you willing to advocate for things like this, especially since you've been in a position of working for education already? And I'm someone young who's coming and telling you this. A lot of people in this area, even in the downtown area, are in need of financial literacy programs. They are in need of removing the zoning. They are in need of removing, I also told you about this, certain, I don't know what class will be moved or an extra block of class. You know, this is where it gets difficult because money gets involved, time. That would affect traffic. That's difficult, but we could talk about the more basic things about maybe removing a certain class that's not really valuable. I don't want to say all classes we have are not valuable, but putting something that could more impact the students financially in the future. So your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so we've actually talked a lot about this idea of building a Department of Philanthropy within Jersey City, right? And the reason I want to bring that up is I want you to think about Newark and New York City, right? These are two like sister cities. New York City, so much of what's helping young people is all these foundations are giving in money, right? So you have, all the sort of big companies that are there. But let's look at Newark. Newark has the Prudential Foundation. It has the MCJ Amelia Foundation, which is run by the guy who used to own the Nets. It has the Victoria Foundation. It has the PSCG Foundation. The Devils do a lot of good work there. You have all these sort of actors who are helping to build out the NGO sector there, right? So all the nonprofits. They're helping support all the nonprofits. Also, sorry, my internet's being a little glitchy.
Yeah, it's fine. That happens.
Yeah, but if you look at Jersey City, right? I mean, who in Jersey City are big philanthropic players? Just think about it, right? Like we have JP Morgan here. We have Goldman Sachs that's here. We have DTCC that's here. We have Veris that's here. These are huge companies. When's the last time you saw something in Greenville sponsored by JP Morgan, sponsored by Goldman Sachs? Like these people are not sponsoring the things that they should be. And so what we want to do is we want to create Department of Philanthropy that can pull in additional money and additional resources and direct it towards the people that need it the most, right? And to me, the people that always are going to need it the most are always our kids and our youth, because the future of this city is our young people. That is the reality of any city. You need to be investing in your young people because they are the future. They determine like the trajectory your city is going to head on. And for us, what we've done in Jersey City, unfortunately, is we've forced out a lot of our young people. Like that's literally what we've been doing, right? The number one indicator of when someone's going to leave Jersey City is as soon as their kids turn 5, right? So like they don't trust our school system. But the number two is basically like, kids when they are going off to college or they're graduating, they can no longer afford to live here, right? And so they're being forced out. And so to me, like I think we need to be very, very deliberate about investing in our young people, giving them financial literacy resources, but also giving them job training, connecting them with high-paying jobs in Jersey City. So think about this fact as well, right? Do you know what % of people who live in Jersey City work in Jersey City?
Let me know. I do not.
17%.
Wow.
17. That's extremely low, right?
Yeah.
And now look, it'd be one thing if we were like, oh, like the amount of people who are working in Jersey City, right? There's not enough jobs here. But actually, there's just as many jobs in Jersey City as there are people leaving to go to job somewhere else. And so what that tells me is, man, there's a huge misalignment here, and we need to incentivize people to hire local. So one of the plans that we put forward is literally for city contractors to incentivize them to hire local. Like, hey, if you hire local, we actually will allow you to bid a little bit higher. Like, even if it's a little bit more expensive, we're willing to pay a little bit more as long as you're going to hire a local workforce. Because to me, like that is money that's coming back into our economy, that's uplifting all our boats, that's uplifting our residents, and making sure they can afford to stay here.
Okay, I like that blend. I definitely do think that's important. And coming after those companies, that's a big fortune, like you said.
It's a lot of money, man. It's a lot of money in this city.
Oh, This is a good one. This is a good one. Okay. This is what I want to get to. So, there was a building that I spoke about on my page where it's 155 units. 155 units and only 10% affordable housing. So that's 15 units affordable housing. Okay. So this is my problem. What happens, I spoke to somebody about this, another councilman. Sorry, I don't remember his name. He commented on my videos. We spoke a little bit about it. But what happens with buildings like this is, in the whole real estate business, even you're a homeowner and you're trying to sell it, one of the biggest ways that you sell your house is you speak about its surroundings. Sometimes you're not even speaking so much about the house. You're speaking about what's around it. This is a beautiful home. You want to know why it's a beautiful home? You have a train station right there, right? You have a beautiful park right there. The mall is 5 minutes away. Every time somebody's selling a house, the first thing that they say in Jersey City, 10 minutes access to New York. Why? Because they're selling your surroundings. So my problem with that is when they do that, they're speaking to Jersey politicians. They know what's going to be built up next. What happens is these plans are years ahead before they unfold, just like everything. It's not a secret. They know what's coming next. They speak about it with these developers, and then it unfolds. So what happens is when you have 155 units and only 15 available units affordable housing, which really isn't affordable, you're pushing the residents who live there out. You're gentrifying because you have plans to build more. And what happens is once you do that, they build another one. And when they build another one, they build something else. You want to know what else they build? They build a park. They bring a restaurant in. They bring in a Target, and they do it again. So I said I feel like it should be a higher percentage. And I was told that once it reached a certain percentage, it doesn't get built at all. And I would rather it not get built at all. Everybody's opinion on this is different. This could get to a really deep conversation because it goes into money and how much goes back into the city, and you can't win everything, right? But what happens is it's a domino effect, and it already happened downtown. You can't stop it. Now it's slowly making its way here. And I would rather them not build it at all if we're only getting 15 units. But it gets to a point when they are building it, you can't stop it. So if we can't stop it, I would like to see it be a higher number. I would think it's fair if it's a higher number. 15 units out of 155 is crazy. And I hope the residents who do live here aren't being bamboozled into thinking it's a good idea, because it's not. I also spoke on Berry Lane Park, which was built a couple of years ago. It was never for the residents here. That's what I believe. That's what I think is the truth. It's a plan. It's a plan. Like I said, everything is unfolding. Just like his one-way streets with his bus lanes that Fool Up is trying to do. He built Berry Lane Park, and now they're building around it. Why? The value goes up. Now you get to tell people you have this freaking beautiful new park. Now you get to charge them a whole $500 more and all the extra nonsense they do. And what do they do after that? They keep building it again and again and again and again and keep going back and keep going back, and we won't be here no more. Then they're gonna start bringing skyscrapers down to Greenville and just keep going. And I just want to know your thoughts on the percentage. If you would like to see it higher, if you think they should still be built, and your thoughts on that.
Yeah. So I want to talk about a couple things here. First is I want to mention one of our big plans, which is to build a land bank in Jersey City. What a land bank allows you to do is, instead of building 15% affordable housing, why can't we build 100% affordable housing, right? So what a land bank allows you to do is you can take abandoned property, vacant property, tax lien property, take it under the city. City can give it to a developer to build at, like, they can give them to the land for like $1, expedite it so that they can build 100% affordable housing. That, to me, is how you are actually going to solve some of this affordability crisis. You're not going to solve it by taking 10% or 15% of a building. You're going to take it by building extremely affordable housing and preserving it in this land bank, right? So what a land bank does, it takes these parcels and makes them 100% affordable.
Okay.
The other thing about,
sorry to stop you there. That sounds great. But let's be honest, how hard is that to accomplish? Because especially with these Jersey politicians, people are pocketing money. They don't want to do that because they're getting paid off a lot of money to allow these
Yeah.
developers to do what they want. How hard is that for you? Because I know a lot of decisions isn't just dependent on you, and you're going to have a lot of people who has a problem with doing that because they're getting paid off. So how hard
Yeah.
will this to be to actually accomplish?
The mayor can do it, right? So, and I want to give the reference of Newark. So in Newark, New Jersey, they have a land bank. They were the first land bank in the state of New Jersey. Now, no other municipality in the state has it, but Newark does. And I'll tell you another project that Newark does. I think it's fantastic. A big part of what you're talking about is home ownership, right? Because this valley is going up, but the wealth that's being created is not being shared with the residents that are here in Jersey City. In Newark, they have another project, right, where they're selling a two-family house for $120,000. Think about how amazing that is.
Yeah,
That rent is going to pay your mortgage off, right?
yeah.
And you'll get to own that house outright. And that's a project they're doing in combination with the Urban League. To me, you got to provide home ownership opportunities. You have to give people chances to get this 100% affordable housing through land banking and using municipal like incentives like tax abatements. But I'll be honest with you, my position on building is I think we need to build more housing, period, right? And the reason you need to do that is the only way you solve the affordability crisis is to have more housing stock. Because I think the thing is, right now, the reason people are paying so much for rent is because their demand exists, right? There's this great, one of my professors at Rutgers Newark, he talks about this. No one will build a skyscraper in the middle of a desert, right? And the reason they won't do that is because no one is going to come and live there. The only reason it's viable to build skyscrapers for these developers because they're like, look, I know people are going to move here, and I know there's going to be housing that's going to be built here. But I'll tell you something, even in Journal Square, some of these developers are actually really pissed off that there's all these high rises because their rent is going down. There's so much housing stock now in Jersey City, in Journal Square, that they have to compete with one another to like lower the rental costs in order for people to move into their homes. And so what I think you really need to do is you need to say, look, I'm not saying build skyscrapers, right? I'm not saying let's go to Greenville, knock it all down, and build a bunch of skyscrapers. But what I am saying is, how do we think about strategically building more housing, right? That allows us to like increase density. So now instead of a 2-family, it's like a 3-family or a 4-family, right? And like now, instead of people competing for these 2 units, there's 4 units. And so now people can say, oh, like, you know what? The rent, instead of being $2,000, is going to be $1,500. And I think that's the way you really try to solve this affordability crisis. And you see that happen in places like Austin, Texas. Austin, Texas has seen their rents decline, right? Because of all the housing that's been built. And I think, what you really want to do though, is while you're doing that, right? I want to give ownership back to Jersey City residents, right? How do we make sure we get opportunities where people have wealth being created? So instead of them just building rentals, right? How do we help them build condos? How do we help them build something else where people that are in Jersey City can get first-time home buyer, can get down payment assistance, where the city can help you buy that home. So now you are getting a piece of that pie. And as the stock and the wealth goes up, your valuation goes up and you can afford to live here forever.
Okay, so now I want to get into a bit about crime, the violence and everything that's going on. So I wanted to get into the city's violence and crime. Now, this is going to be a difficult question, and I don't know if you have the answer because it's not something I'm very educated on. But I would like to know, for example, say there's a big drug bust in the Greenville, Jersey City section. They confiscate the money, they confiscate the drugs. We don't know where that money goes. So I want to know if there's any possible way, if all the money is confiscated, which the government holds on to, what power do you have or influence do you have in being able to get that money back and spend it back in that same area? Because if we're going to catch people with money for doing the bad things, why can't it be turned to something good? So if we find $100,000, I feel like that should be reinvested back into that community where it was found. We can use that for youth programs, which a big problem was here, which is another conversation, is the trash in the area. We could bring back the summer jobs for the kids and they could clean up the area. What power do you have in being able to get that money reinvested back into the neighborhood that's found in these big drug busts?
Yeah, so it depends on who does the drug bust. Unfortunately, some of the biggest cases is run usually by the DEA, so it's federal. And so what
Yeah,
happens is the federal agents take the money, right? And like
yeah. You have no power
Jersey
over
doesn't
that.
have, you have no
Yeah,
power
you
over
can't
that,
touch that. Yeah, yeah.
right? But Jersey City does have our own police department, and like when that stuff happens, that money gets reinvested into the police department. Now, it's not directly back into that part of the city, but the way you got to think about it is if that money is helping the police budget, then you can pull some money from the police budget to then reinvest in the city, right? In that part of the city. I think the bigger picture here, though, in terms of crime, I'll be honest with you, like I don't know if you've seen what happened in Baltimore under this new mayor. I don't know if you've been following it at all.
No, I didn't see.
Okay. The new mayor of Baltimore, I think, has had a very, very specific solution to dealing with crime that's been happening in his town. And Baltimore has had one of the lowest homicide rates, in its history under this new mayor's administration. He's very young. I knew him since he was on the city council. And what he did is two things, right? So one is he invested in a bunch of recreation programs, right? So he's like, look, I want to get kids like off the streets. So I want to have them, in summer programs. I want to have, after school programs. I want to have recreation programs, like all these different things. The other thing he did, and this is the case in every major city, everybody who is in a major municipality will tell you this. When it comes to crime, the city usually knows who is committing the crimes. It is almost always the case that the city has a list of people that they're like, look, these people we know are causing most of the crimes that are happening in our city. What the mayor of Baltimore did is he sent a letter to these people who are like highest propensity to commit crimes, and he basically said to them, listen, I'm the mayor of your city. If you want to turn your life around, if you want me to help you get a job, you want me to help you get on the straight and narrow, like I will help you do that. And so I will work with you on like job training. I will work with you to get a home. I will work with you to like build out all this stuff. But if you do not want to change your life around, you will likely end up in prison. Like you are going to head down a path where we know you, we know that you're one of the people that's involved in this stuff, and we will target you as somebody to like take off of the streets. Because ultimately, in every major city in this country, the way crime is perpetuated, it's not as though everyone is sort of involved in the major crimes. There are a couple of key individuals who are sort of perpetuating the major crime that happens in these parts of the city. And like those are the people that you really want to crack down on, right? It's like sort of taking the bad people out of a neighborhood. And again, not saying, look, throw them all in jail, right? Offer them an opportunity. Say, look, man, I want to make your life better, right? Like I want to give you the opportunity to like build wealth for yourself. I want to give you the opportunity to like have a stable job. I want to give you that chance. But if you don't want that chance, like why should we have you sort of terrorizing our neighborhoods?
So this is my opinion on that. To be honest with you, I don't like Stephen Fulop at all. But whether I like him or not doesn't change the fact it's very hard as a mayor. And sometimes I feel bad for anybody in a political position for all the crime to just be thrown on him as the blame. Let's be honest. He's not Superman. You're not Superman. Any other candidates are not Superman. You can't run in the street and catch a bullet or stop somebody from getting hit. It just doesn't work like that. So I would give him grace, you grace, everybody else running grace on that. I think the blame would more so come if you're not trying, if you're not pushing for change. But I do want to speak on that is if you're somebody who would be very honest and blunt if you are in a mayor position about the amount of crime and what kind of crimes are going on. Because this is the truth. I'm here to tell you with the Stephen Fulop administration and a lot of government positions, not just Jersey City, they get to a point where they're lying about numbers. It's easy to lie. They start coming up with different reasons on why a person died, even though it was a homicide. They're lying on death certificates so they can say the city got safer and it's much better and it's a great place for you to come raise your family. And that's a lie, and it's dangerous. They're also lying about the amount of rape going on. They're saying, oh no, we're at an all-time low. The numbers are dropping. It's safe for your family to come. So are you gonna be somebody? Obviously, you're gonna tell me no. Who wouldn't in your position? But I hope you are somebody who's honest about pushing those numbers out. I don't think people would blame you because it's not your fault, but you know some people will. But I feel like it would be better for community if you're telling them exactly what's going on, being honest about the numbers, being honest if it's not getting better, and just keep coming up with different plans to try to see if it does.
Yeah. And look, I'll tell you, like, the level of candidness that I have about this stuff. When I was running in 2018, right, I was running for re-election. The state had just announced that they were going to cut our budget by $100 million at least, right? And they ended up cutting $250 million from the schools. And I remember during my debate, you can look back on the tape in 2018. I literally said to people, I said, look, your taxes will go up. It is just a reality, right? Like, you are going to face a tax increase because our budget is being cut by a significant amount. And I had my opponents who sat there who did the political thing, who said, no, like, we're going to work with City Hall and we're going to make sure your taxes are stable and da-da. And like, I was like, they're just lying to you. Like, anyone who sells that to you is lying to you. And so I would say this, like, I think that the city does underreport crime. That's my personal position on this. I think that from day one, I think that the city, it needs to be very clear the financial position we're in, because we just got downgraded, our credit just got downgraded because I don't think that we're in a good position financially. I think that on the crime statistics, we need to be very candid about where we are on our crime so that people know exactly where we are, because that is the measure I want to be measured against, right? The worst thing to do would be to spend 4 years trying to cover up everything, trying to make things look pretty. And then at the end of 4 years, someone else gets in office and is like, oh man, like, we are hanging on just by taping things together, and like, things could break at any second.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the reality is you need someone who is willing to embrace the big challenge, who's not looking to say, look, like, what is my political career ambition, but like, what is best for the city? And to me, like, look, I'll be honest with you, man, like, my life would be easier if I just went to a law firm, right, made a ton of money, and just wrote some checks back to the city and felt like I was doing my part, right? Like, hey, you know what, I'm making things nice. But I understand that there are some really big challenges in the city, but I also see a lot of potential, right? Like, I see the possibility for young people to really be a part of what makes the city so special. I see possibility for people that have been here to stay here, to continue to contribute to our culture. And I see the possibility with the new residents to say, look, like, how can you be ingratiated into who Jersey is versus like coming in and trying to change us into something that we're not, right? And I think the only way you do that is you have to be willing to like invest in these big ideas, invest in a kind of leadership that says, look, we are going to be accountable to the residents. And that a lot of what's happened is I think that the administration is not accountable to the residents and the schools have not been accountable to the residents. And I think both of those things need to be held to account.
Okay, now I want to talk a little bit about bikes, pedestrians, and cars. All right, it's out of hand in Jersey City. We all know this, right? But there's a bit of blame to go around for everybody. I have a motorcycle, I have a truck, and I use my bike, and I walk, and I take public transportation. I've done it all. So I've been in the lens of motorcyclist, bicyclist, and driving a car. There's blame to go out to everybody. So I seen on a post, I think Jim McGreevy made a post. I seen you made a comment, and I think you were saying something like, you're only blaming the bicyclist, and I think you were more on the side of to put the blame on people who are driving cars, and I don't think that's fair or true, because I've seen it all. There's a huge problem. The people driving the bikes and scooters, they're out of pocket. It's not much to say about they're completely out of pocket. Somebody and sorry, let me keep going for a little bit.
Yeah, go ahead.
When I told people that I thought that turning MLK and Ocean to a one-way was a bad idea, somebody got offended and told me this and that. Hey, a little girl just died in downtown Jersey City. She got hit. First of all, rest in peace to her. My condolences to the family. That's a horrible way to go. And you know that family's going through a lot of pain, respectfully. Nobody wants to go through that. Nobody wants to see their kid die at all, especially in that way. And, you know, respect the condolences to them. But I told them, respectfully, that's something that's gonna happen a lot. And it's sad because it shouldn't. But certain things we don't have no control over, no matter how many bike lanes you put up. People are gonna die from accidents. people are gonna get hit by a car while they're on their bike. Cars are gonna hit. Cars are gonna hit each other. It's just not something you can control. But I think that you were more so on the side of blaming the car. Everybody's out of control. So I just want you to speak a little bit about this disaster in traffic of all different kinds of things, from cars to motorcycles to mopeds to bikes. Your thoughts, your opinions, your plans to make it safer, things like that.
Yeah, so I think the reason for my comment, like, I think everything's contextual in politics, right? Like, no one just makes a post because they're like, oh, I want to make a post, right? I think that McGreevy was sort of responding, right, that specific time, right after this child was killed riding their bike in downtown Jersey City, right? And to me, the big issue with that is, because I just pulled up his post, right? The post that he said was, as mayor, I'll create a bicycle and motorcycle patrol to hold law-breaking cyclists accountable, right? And he says, weak enforcement puts children, seniors, and families at risk. I want to be the mayor who delivers Vision Zero. Now, if a kid riding their bike just got hit by a car and passed away, and in your post, you don't talk about cars at all. You're saying just bicyclists, right? Because that was my issue with this. Is I agree with you. I think the number one thing that needs to be done is we need to have some traffic enforcement. The cars, there's no traffic enforcement. People don't get tickets anymore for speeding. They're not getting tickets for U-turns. I've seen people run red lights in front of cops. Nobody does anything, right? We need some traffic enforcement. Bicyclists, same thing, especially these e-bikes. You're not supposed to be riding on the sidewalk, right? You're not supposed to be running red lights. You are a vehicle, right? You should be treating yourself like a vehicle. You should not be just, doing whatever you want. So there needs to be accountability there as well. I agree. But to me, specifically on that point, it was just the fact that you notice in that post, he doesn't talk about cars at all. He just talks about cyclists, right? And to me, I actually agree more with you, right? Like, everyone is sort of at blame, right? I mean, look, to be honest with you, as a city, and I'm guilty of this, man. I grew up in Jersey City. We need to actually even do a better job around jaywalking, right? Like, we have a lot of people, especially in, I'll be honest, like Indian Square. If I ever drive up Newark Avenue, dude, everyone's jaywalking, right? Like, that is not safe. That is not a safe way to run a city. And so we need to have a culture where people understand, like, hey, we're going to have a lot more cars on the road. We're going to have a lot more bikes on the road. People are going to be trying to move faster to get around town. That's how we're going to, alleviate this stuff. And as people are driving around, like, we need to make sure that accidents are not happening. And so how do we do that? Well, let's make sure we enforce traffic, right? Let's make sure that we, have the infrastructure in place, to make biking safe, to make walking safe, to make driving safe. But to me, like, it's not just a one party blame, right? I think everyone's sort of to blame. And I do think especially bikers, like, I think a lot of them sort of skirt a lot of rules, right? Sort of pretend like they can sort of do whatever they want. And we need to make sure they're held to account as well, right? To say, look, like, you cannot just bike and do whatever you want. There's a certain way to go about the city. And I'll tell you, like, I think there needs to be a big culture shift in the city as a whole, right? Like, this entire city as a whole right now, people are sort of feel like it's a Wild West. And I think you feel that even if you go into Bayonne, right? Like, you drive in Greenville and you drive in Bayonne, it is completely different. Like, people will drive in Bayonne sanely. Like, they immediately, they say no. They're like, bro, I'm going to be in Bayonne. Like, these cops are going to pull me over.
Yes.
They will pull me over.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely agree. So, I only really know you and Jim McGreevy. And here's the reasons why. Not even because Jim McGreevy was former governor, but I see him physically. He's physically out here. He's out here, door to door. You have a big social media presence. All the other candidates, I don't hear about physically or social media. I don't see them. I don't hear from them. So I'm not going to be biased, but I am biased. But I like you both the most because you're who I see the most in front of my face. So is this something you're going to continue if you were to win mayor? And also as well get more I'd like to see you more physically involved. I'm going to be honest. I see more so Jim McGreevy physically involved. I could be ignorant because I'm not sure. We live in two different areas, but as the mayor, remember, it's the whole Jersey City. You have to be everywhere. So, when you become mayor, your schedule is hectic. I know you're not going to have the same amount of freedom to be it just doesn't work like that. But will there be times where you're going to be able to be super physically involved? I see Jim McGreevy do it and not change up. Obviously, you're going to say, of course, just like everybody else would. You know, that's what you're supposed to do. But in your terms, when it comes to making down decisions, especially in the communities that it would affect the most, we want to see you out here speaking to us door to door the same way that you will be if you're running and trying to win. Is that something you're going to do, or is that something you're just going to tell me you're going to do?
Yeah. So look, one, I would love to walk with you in your neighborhood. Like, happy to come anytime you want to make it happen. Like, well, happy to walk with you in my neighborhood. We have a Ward A candidate we're announcing at Lady G's in like a week or two. So I'd love for you to come out to that announcement if you're in that neighborhood. But I want to make one of the concrete plans, I think, in terms of like as the mayor, is I think there needs to be visibility, right? Which, like, I agree with you, door to door is important. Let's be honest, my capacity to do door to door while trying to run the city is going to be limited, right?
Of course.
Door to door is limited. Yeah. But I think visibility is very important, right? Like the idea that people should be able to see their mayor, right? To be able to identify, like, hey, the mayor walks the same streets that I walk, right? He understands that this is also part of the city. It's not just downtown, right? So one of the big things I did recently, you probably saw this video, is I did like a run club video.
Yeah, I've seen it. I'm losing connection.
Sorry, my thing just froze for a second. Okay. yeah, I'm good now. Okay, so I did this run club video, and the reason I did it is I brought all the run clubs in Jersey City together, right? The guys from Bergen Lafayette, the guys from downtown, the guys from the waterfront, some of the guys from the Heights, right? I brought them all together. And the reason I did that is because, to me, running is one of the things where it really lets you feel a city. You can run around the town and you get to see all these different neighborhoods, you get to interact with different people. Part of what I want to do as mayor is I literally want to spend every morning running in a different neighborhood in Jersey City. Like, I want to run on MLK in some mornings. Some mornings I'm going to be on Bergen Avenue. Some mornings I'll be in Central Avenue. Some mornings I'll be in downtown, right? Some mornings I'll be in Journal Square. But I want people to be able to identify, like, hey, you know what? That's the mayor. Like, he is here in my streets. And I'm not saying, you know, like I'll be able to like have a town hall while I'm running, but I want visibility. And I want to be able to do town halls not just in downtown, right? Not just in City Hall, but also the City Hall Annex, right? And also in other community centers where people can say, hey, this is the mayor, and I feel a connection to him. Whereas I think right now, you know, people, especially in the south side of the city, do not feel connected to the mayor. And I think you also notice that, you know, look at those numbers for Baraka versus Fulop in Jersey City. Baraka got 36% of the vote in Jersey City, and Fulop only got 38%. To me, that's a sign that, you know, people in Jersey City are sort of like, look, like, we don't feel connected to this guy, even though he was running for governor.
He's horrible. Sorry, go ahead. Keep going.
Yeah. So I think, you know, the strategy needs to be, look, how do I make sure that people feel connected? How do I make sure that people, you know, like, see me visibly, right? And I'll tell you this about officers as well, right? Like, people talk about police officers walking the streets in Greenville, right? If I'm a police officer in Greenville and I don't see the mayor walking the streets in Greenville, how comfortable am I going to feel walking those streets?
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's part of the culture here, right? Is we have to change the culture. And I think it changes from the top, where I think the mayor needs to say, look, this is all my city. I am here to represent everybody, and you will see me visibly all across the city.
So I'm going to end it on this. One last question. I really appreciate your time. So what's 3 things that you really want to focus on as the mayor of Jersey City? 3 most important things. That's your opinion. Yeah. Not what other people are saying. What you think is the 3 most important things based off what you're seeing.
Yeah, I think number 1 is transportation. I'm going to be honest with you. I think people need a better way to get around town that needs to be affordable. So we have proposed a fast and free bus system. It's a big investment, but I think it's needed, right? Especially when, again, only 17% of people who live in Jersey City work in Jersey City. We talk to a lot of them, and it's because they don't have an effective way to get around town. It's actually easier for them to go somewhere else than it is to have reliable transportation within Jersey City. The next big thing that we want to do is we want to make it more affordable. And we want to do that through building more housing. We want to do that through these land banking programs. We also want to do that through like banning certain fees, right? So we want to ban broker fees. We want to ban these junk fees. So like when you're renting an apartment, you know exactly what you're paying for, right? Like, you know, you shouldn't have to pay a broker as a tenant. Like, that should be something that the landlord pays for. And the third thing I think is, you know, fully funding our education system. making sure our schools are incredible, right? Like I'm the only one who's running who's actually had experience from the Board of Education. And I understand why people don't do that job. I mean, it is unpaid. You are dealing with really massive problems, but I think it's a testament to the kind of public servant that I want to be, right? That even if I don't get a salary, I am willing to be there and like be in the trenches, fight the fight, because I understand how important these battles really are. So to me, like those are the top three things, right? Affordability, our education system, and our transportation system.
All right, well, I really, really appreciate this conversation. You know, I'm gonna be posting some of this. A lot of people who's gonna appreciate this as well. I wish you luck. I'm not just saying this to say it, but I do think it's hard for you. Like you said, you're young. People don't like young, whether we like it or not. That's just the truth, in my opinion. You're Muslim, and were you born here?
And I'm an immigrant.
And you're an immigrant. I'm not one of those people who say, oh, you can't do it just because you're this, but let's not be honest, there's a lot of hardship in that. You beat cancer. I mean, that's a lot. That's a lot. So I do wish you luck. People want to see you out here. Please come out. People want to see you out here. A lot of people see you on social media. They want to see your face too. I know you said you've been there, but I just haven't seen it. So other people could have seen it, but even more. It should be so much to the point where I've seen you. You get what I'm saying? People want to see you. I wish you the best of luck. I really appreciate this. This is not just some of my questions, but people from the community. So you're not just speaking to me, you're speaking to the community. They want to hear some of these things. So we appreciate it. We appreciate your time. And good luck. Good luck.
Thank you, man.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate you giving the platform. All right. We'll be in touch.
Have a good one.
See ya.